Good morning, Munchkins. The title of this topic is Blood Transfusion Dilemma for the Vax Naive. Now, your mom and I have been discussing the blood transfusion topic ever since the pandemic event in 2020. You've all lived it, so there's no need to recap in detail the national hysteria that ensued beginning in March 2020. We became suspicious when the legacy media screamed that all we needed to do was to mask up and stay in our homes. Our suspicion increased when we noticed that passenger flights continued in spite of the danger of the virus. One would think that if the virus is really dangerous, the last thing you want to do is to climb into an aluminum tube for 3 to 4 hours and breathe the same air as 200 of your best friends. At that moment, the legacy media and the medical establishment lost all credibility with us. Our suspicion turned into conviction when the national press literally encouraged unmasked rioting in public spaces, but insisted on closing schools and churches. Even then, we began to wonder how people would respond when they realized that not only were the shots largely ineffective, but they were actually dangerous to many. Not everyone took the shot. My guess is that about 80% of the population took at least one jab. That means about 20% of the population is what you might call vax naive. Now, here's the rub for the vax naive. Will clean blood storage businesses arise to allow them to access vax-free blood in the event that they need a transfusion? If you are vax naive, the last thing you want is to be contaminated with the vax during a surgical procedure. Now, it may be that vax blood is not dangerous to the vax naive population at all. I don't know. But I don't know because the medical establishment's not speaking on this issue. There is a relatively recent historical precedent for this. In the early 80s, the HIV epidemic swept the country. The legacy media was very reluctant to point out that this was a behavior-driven pandemic and that faithful heterosexual monogamous couples had zero risk of acquiring HIV. The highest risk categories were gay couples and individuals engaged in, well, shall we say, multiple partnerships? It's a family article, so don't laugh at my terrible euphemisms. But there was one small subcategory of individuals who were affected by this, and these were people who needed to have blood transfusions. Hemophiliacs, for example, in particular, would fall into this category because they're high volume users of transfusions. This rapidly became a big problem because a large number of people who had blood transfusions acquired HIV from those blood transfusions. The most high profile example of this was tennis legend Arthur Ashe. But Arthur Ashe's death was not in vain because it forced the medical establishment to implement protocols to prevent people infected with HIV from donating blood. So let's fast forward to 2026. The medical establishment seems awfully silent on this issue. It is known that there is a significant risk associated with the use of these vaccines. Is there any risk associated with receiving quote-unquote tainted blood from people who have had the vaccine? It's a simple question, yet it has explosive implications. To even hold the discussion, the medical establishment has to talk openly about the downsides of the vaccines. And they still don't talk about these downsides unless under pressure to do so. Not to mention the obvious lack of efficacy. I can't think of any other medical procedure that appears to be both unsafe and ineffective at the same time, but it's promoted by the medical establishment anyway. My guess is that the medical establishment will say that there's no evidence that unvaccinated donor blood is safer than blood from vaccinated donors. Of course, I'd like to see the evidence to support that flat assertion. The track record of late has been, the best I can say, abysmal. I saw that the FDA warns that such requests lack scientific support and may be based on quote-unquote misinformation. Now, the minute you hear someone use the word misinformation, you know that they're doing or defending the indefensible. They have resorted to the first weapon always chosen by those who cannot support their positions with evidence-based reasoning, and that is the good old-fashioned ad hominem attack. The FDA is the supposed experts. It is reasonable for the public to ask them to show us the data that proves that there is no risk to the vax naive of receiving vax tainted blood. After all, those who avoided the vax paid a high price to do so. In many cases, the vax naive lost jobs, they lost their businesses, they were hassled at work, they were denied promotions. Then they watched their families and friends suffer from a plethora of vax-induced side effects such as anaphylaxis, Guillain-Barré syndrome, myocarditis, pericarditis, thrombocytopenia syndrome, strokes, heart attacks, and all manner of turbo cancers. So I'm sorry, FDA. Assurances of safety in the old ad hominem attack won't cut it. Memo to the FDA. Either put up the studies showing that vax-tainted blood is safe for transfusion for the vax-naive or shut up. We're waiting, and we'll probably be waiting for a very, very long time. As I always sign out on these things, I'll just say, peace out.